Hello and welcome to this training video for National Geographic Learning's Impact series. In this video, we'll have a brief look at the key features of impact, before doing an in-depth unit walkthrough, including ideas on how to exploit the material, before finishing with a look at how impact supports teachers, no matter how experienced they are. I'd like to start with this question. What is the purpose of 21st century education? Education, and certainly teaching English, has moved away from just teaching a subject, learning grammar and vocabulary, and the four traditional skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, in the case of English language teaching. While of course it is all of those things, education is also about preparing students with the skills they need for their futures. To sum it up, 21st century education is about giving students a set of skills, knowledge, values, and abilities they need to develop in order to succeed in learning, work, and life in the information age. And our role as teachers is just that, to empower teens for real life. And that's exactly what impact does. It teaches them more than just English. It teaches them about the world they live in, the values they need, and the skills they require to be successful in the 21st century. So how does impact do this? Well, impact helps teenage learners to better understand themselves, each other, and the world they live in a number of different ways. It uses cross-curricular content to enable learners to explore the world they inhabit, using stimulating information about the world to engage them and prepare them for future academic success. Learners explore real people and places from around the world and the important issues that affect all of us. They are introduced to topics and themes from the sciences, arts, history, and many more. Impact also uses National Geographic explorers, photographers, scientists, artists, to name but a few, who act as real-life role models, who are making a difference in the world. Each unit highlights one explorer to inspire future global citizens and to promote 21st century skills. Explorers are global citizens who are actively working in many different fields, helping explore content from different relevant perspectives. And the explorers appear throughout in readings, videos, and different activities. Impact also helps learners take ownership of their learning and become active participants in the classroom. This is done through high-interest subjects, which motivate learners, and by using student choice activities and projects to empower them to become active participants. In this way, students are able to choose how they want to practice newly acquired language from various options. And throughout every lesson of impact, we are implicitly encouraging them to develop their communication, their critical thinking, their creative thinking, and collaboration skills. In other words, the 4 C's of 21st century learning. Every unit of impact starts with an impactful, thought-provoking image to introduce the theme and topic of the unit. Indeed, the whole course is full of amazing images. But don't be mistaken in thinking that these images are just there to make them look pretty. Images can be used as an integral part of the lesson in getting students communicating. Because images do many things. They elicit emotional responses. They engage in interest. They support understanding of discourse. They extend knowledge of the world, stimulate discussion, and they support critical and creative thinking. But more than that, they enhance and make learning last. So it's important to try to utilize the images in as many ways as possible. One activity you can use when you start a new course, for example, is to get them to flick through the book and find an image, or 2 or 3, that they really like, and then get them to explain to each other why they chose that picture. Not only does this get students communicating naturally, it also familiarizes them with the book and gets them excited about using it. There are, of course, other activities that you can do with images. But what I'd like to do now is introduce the idea of the 3 dimensions of viewing. So, the idea with the 3 dimensions of viewing is to get students interacting with images on different levels. In the first instance, we have the affective or perceptual viewing, which is essentially the image and the student, the image and you. For example, how does the image make you feel? Why does it make you feel that way? What does it remind you of? Next, we have the compositional or structural viewing, which is essentially the image and itself. Here, we can ask students to analyse the photo more. What's in the foreground and background? How is it framed? What do you think lies beyond the frame? The third dimension of viewing is the critical or ideological viewing, where we encourage the students to think more deeply about the image. For example, what is the message of the image? Why was it created? Who is its intended audience? These are very simple questions, yet very effective ways to use images in the classroom and to get students speaking. To help the teacher, in the lesson planner, there is always an about the photo information box, so that they can give more background to the image to the students. Each lesson also starts with a quote from the explorer that the unit focuses on. This is also a great source for discussion and debate activities by itself, getting the students to giving their opinions. It's all about asking our students the right kind of questions. And if we do that, we will get them communicating. For example, we could ask our students to discuss these kind of questions. As well as communication skills, these kind of activities can encourage our students to think more critically and even more creatively, given the right kind of questions. Each unit opener also has discussion tasks which are meant to introduce the learners to the theme and to help them personalize it. So here we can see very clearly that the questions are very much directed at the students' own experiences and opinions. One tip I'd suggest is not to do this kind of activity sat down in pairs, but to get the students up and moving around in a class mingle activity, so that they can speak to multiple people and then feed back to their original partners. One final thing to mention is that the lesson, as do all lessons, also comes with an additional Extend worksheet, available on the teacher's CD-ROM and also on the website. Let's move on to lesson 1, which is a vocabulary lesson, where the vocab is presented in context through a reading passage, strongly related to the theme and the explorer. Of course, to assist in the comprehension of the text, which is also available in audio format, and to motivate your learners, use the images to activate their schemata and to personalize the theme. In this particular lesson, we can ask our learners about what they enjoy about theme parks and what kind of rides they like going on. We can then get them to focus on the pre-reading question. However, it's always a good idea to give students time to think about this question by themselves first, before pairing them up or putting them in groups. This allows them to get all their thoughts and ideas clear first. In this respect, I would suggest using a think, pair, share, square approach, whereby the students first work independently, then pair up with another student to share their ideas, and then finally put those pairs into groups of 4. So why is think, pair, share, square so effective? Think, pair, share, square is effective for a number of reasons. First of all, it breaks content into bite-sized, manageable pieces. It gets students active. It involves all of them in communication. It also provides novelty in that working with peers makes learning more memorable. It also gives the teacher the opportunity for formative assessment, allowing them to listen in to students' conversations, taking notes, giving feedback. Finally, it also requires almost no preparation from the teacher, which can only be a good thing. Once the students have read and listened to the text, the new vocabulary is presented. But it's always a good idea to ask students to say what they think the new words might mean before actually telling them. It's also a good idea to get students to personalize the vocabulary at this stage by writing sentences using the new words about themselves, their places, their family. This can facilitate the speaking task in exercise 3. The vocabulary is dealt with in more detail in the next part of the lesson, where it is contextualized with the life and work of the explorer. In this case, we have a gap-fill task about Jack Johnson, using all the key vocabulary. Some more words are then introduced, with the students using their existing knowledge and context to match the words with their meanings. At this stage, I'd also suggest getting the students to personalize the target language once again. Something that my students really enjoy doing are mingle activities. So I would prepare a questionnaire using the target language and get the students to move around the class asking the questions to different students. So, something a bit like this. This has the benefit of ensuring the students have multiple exposures to the target language and therefore deepens their understanding of it and its usage. And of course, it makes it more memorable. Once the students have had that exposure to the target language, it facilitates the freer practice tasks on offer in the You Decide section. All 3 tasks require recycling of the target language and therefore have the same learning outcome, but give the students choice in what they do. And of course, students like to have choice. It's motivating for them. And each task appeals to different learner types. Of course, while there are many benefits to giving students choice, as a teacher, don't feel compelled to give them a choice every time if you don't think you can do. You can always get them all doing the same task should your teaching situation require it. Again, as with all lessons within Impact, there are additional materials that go with the vocabulary lesson, including a vocabulary log, vocabulary lists, and the vocabulary extend worksheet. The next lesson is a functional speaking lesson, where students are armed with different expressions and phrases to assist different speaking strategies. This is important as research suggests that memorized sentences and phrases are the normal building blocks of fluent spoken discourse. Therefore, teaching phrases like these is a logical approach to take when dealing with speaking skills, as is using dialogues, as it's how learners expect to use the language. A good activity to use when practicing dialogues are disappearing dialogues. So, instead of students just reading and role-playing a dialogue from the book, this adds further cognitive challenge to the learners and therefore makes it more memorable. Remember, generally speaking, teenagers like challenges and enjoy rising to them. So, once the students have read the dialogue through a couple of times, remove some of it. Then repeat the process, increasing the challenge each time. The result is, of course, that students have multiple contact with the target language, which helps them to memorize it. The speaking strategy lessons also come with games, which can be found at the back of the student's book, giving them further meaningful spoken practice with the target language. In this example is giving opinions and responding to them. And within such a structure, it gives students confidence in using English. Once again, for further practice, there is an additional extension worksheet. This then brings us on to the grammar lesson. And the question that I would like to ask is, what is the most important part of the lesson? Is it the grammar presentation, the controlled practice, the vocabulary input, or the final speaking task? The answer is, of course, the final speaking task, and this should always be the goal of the lesson. Don't tell your students that the aim of the lesson is to learn the grammar point, in this case the passive. Rather, the aim should be the communicative goal. After all, what students ever got excited by learning just grammar? Especially teenage students. In Impact, grammar is taught deductively. In other words, it's teacher-led. But it doesn't have to be that way. The grammar boxes include natural examples of real-world language. So it's possible to get students to analyse those sentences by being asked the right kind of questions by the teacher. This way, we can guide them to their own understanding of a grammar point. If you need expanded grammar charts with explanations, these are available both in the workbook and on the classroom presentation tool. And remember, within the lesson planner, there's lots of teacher support. Once the grammar is presented, there is some controlled practice and some speaking practice too, utilising the grammar as well as recycling vocabulary from the earlier lessons in the unit. The key here is that the task is real-world and meaningful. It's showing the communicative function of the grammar point. Depending on your class, this could of course be done in groups or as an open class discussion activity. Should you need additional controlled practice, this is available in the accompanying grammar book, which offers a number of additional activities as well as an in-depth grammar breakdown. There is also further practice in the workbook. In the next part of the lesson, there is some vocabulary input. Vocabulary which is important for the final speaking task. Again, it's worth getting students working in pairs to try to guess the meaning of the new words from the context of the sentences. The lesson then culminates with the final extended speaking task, which often requires some kind of research and mini presentation, as is the case with exercise 6. It's also worth noting that these kind of activities provide a great platform for teachers to do some kind of formative assessment with their students, seeing what they have learned in the lesson, seeing how they're applying it, and then giving them appropriate feedback. The next lesson is a reading lesson, which gives the students the opportunity to synthesize the information they have already acquired throughout the unit, as prompted by the first question in this scenario. As we mentioned earlier, activating schemata is vital to get students motivated in reading. And one way in which we can facilitate this process is by using a KWL chart. Before reading the text, ask students to think about what they already know about the topic, using the title and images to help prompt ideas. After that, ask students to write down what they would like to know from the text, what they want to know. This gives students a reason to read and also personalizes the reading process. Finally, when they've read the text, they complete the What I Learnt section, which in turn acts as a record of their own learning. Another technique to develop student motivation to read is to encourage the students to read the questions before reading the text and asking them to predict the answers. This acts as an anticipation guide for the students. It gives them context and language which can then help them process the text more fluently. To aid the reading process and to get students reading on a deeper level, it's also a good idea to use different types of graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are great because they encourage readers to think while they are reading. Depending on the text type, there are different graphic organizers that can be used. For example, sunshine organizers, Venn diagrams, flowcharts, T-charts can all be used. These are all available on the Lesson Planner CD-ROM and online. Indeed, the Lesson Planner will even tell you which graphic organizer to use for each reading lesson. The reading lessons always have post-reading tasks, which again focus on developing students' critical thinking skills. In this case, it's asking students to think about why a text has been written. The final task again gives students the opportunity to communicate and give their opinions on the content of the text. There are different ways you could deal with this activity. For example, you could split a class into different groups and give each group just one of the questions to answer. They would then present their thoughts and conclusions to the whole class. Remember, just because a coursebook says to do something in a certain way, don't be afraid to adapt it to your own teaching and classroom needs. As with the other lessons, there is an extension worksheet to go with the reading lesson. It might be that you give this to all students, but equally, it could be given to those who finish first to aid in classroom differentiation and classroom management. The next lesson is the video lesson. The video lessons all follow a before, while, and after you watch methodology. As with any input, whether oral or visual, it's important students are prepared to receive that information, hence the importance of the pre-watching tasks. It's a case of getting students to share their experiences, their knowledge, their ideas and opinions. However, watching videos can still be difficult for learners of English. To help with this, it can be a good idea to show the video to the students without any sound on the first viewing. This allows students to watch without the pressure of having to understand the audio, and allows them to focus on processing the visual input. The visuals themselves give students an idea of what the video is about, and can then allow students to discuss what they saw and what they think is being said. You can then watch the video again and complete the comprehension questions. There are then some other post-viewing discussion activities, with the lesson finishing with another "you decide" activity. This then leads on to the second grammar lesson, which follows the same format as the first. There is also an extend worksheet to support this lesson. In the writing lesson, students learn the basics of academic writing and are introduced to a variety of writing genres. The lesson follows a product writing approach, with model texts written at the student level, providing examples for students to follow. To support the writing process, there are step-by-step pre-writing and drafting support worksheets provided on the teacher's CD-ROM in the lesson planner. Genre writing worksheets, which give students further support, are also available. The mission page is a short video, speaking and reflection lesson featuring National Geographic explorers as role models. They embody the 21st century skills and values teenagers need to become successful global citizens. A quote by the explorer and a Meet the Explorer video help students connect with these inspirational people who are making a difference in the world. For this lesson, it can be quite hard for learners to express themselves, so it's not the end of the world if they do the discussion tasks in their mother tongue. It is the value, the mission, which is important for the learners, as we try to help them to understand who they are better. The Extend worksheet for this lesson provides a good opportunity to synthesize all of the information from the unit, thinking about what they have learned and how they can use that knowledge going forwards. Every unit finishes with a project, which gives students the opportunity to make an impact. But why are projects such a good idea in the English language classroom? Well, there are many benefits. They utilize all four skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. They also utilize all of the 21st century skills: communication, critical thinking, creativity, and of course, collaboration. They have real-world outcomes and so are authentic. They offer variety in the classroom and a change of focus. They are learner-centered and therefore motivating. They promote learner autonomy and develop higher-order thinking skills. They effectively recycle language and themes from the unit. They're great for mixed ability classes. And they're enjoyable, and students love doing them. So why wouldn't you do projects? As long as they're managed correctly, give the students the support and the time they need, then projects can only be a positive classroom experience. While there are conventional unit reviews in the workbook, in the student's book we have the Express Yourself lesson, which appears after every second unit. These lessons actively encourage students in discussions to synthesize what they have learned in the preceding units and make connections between the unit themes. It exposes students to a wide range of creative expression, from poems and movie scripts to presentations and personal narratives. Students choose a form of creative expression to find their own voice and reflect on the themes that they have studied. In essence, it's another type of project and a great opportunity for formative assessment by the teacher. So, that's the student's book. But what about Impact and the teacher? Well, Impact offers teachers a really supportive lesson planner for all levels of experience, making teaching with the course both easy and enjoyable. As well as the lesson planner, there is a CD-ROM of additional resources and a microsite with resources and a series of professional development videos. The lesson planner itself is really detailed and has a huge amount of information for teachers. At the start of each unit, there is a list of content and language objectives to help with planning. And throughout the planner, there are Be the Expert sections, which focus on teacher development and include information about the photos and teaching tips. It also covers areas including writing support, vocabulary and reading strategies, and a grammar in-depth section. At the start of each lesson, the objectives are made very clear, along with the target vocabulary and also all of the resources that will be needed for that particular lesson. Each lesson follows a clear organisation with warm-up, present, practice, apply, extend, and consolidate stages. For each part of the lesson, there are clear instructions, as well as a guide for what teachers could say at each stage, written in blue. This is especially helpful for novice and inexperienced teachers. The lesson planner also provides different ideas for formative assessment at the end of each lesson. At the back of the lesson planner, there are also instructions for creating unit tests using the ExamView software, as well as the answers to the workbook. There is also the Teacher's Resource CD-ROM found at the back of the lesson planner. This includes all of the audio scripts, graphic organisers, pacing guides, pronunciation activity answer keys, student book cutouts and games, video scripts, and extend worksheets. We also have the Impact website, which provides further support and materials for the teacher. This can be found at eltngl.com/impact. Under the Teachers Resources tab, you can find answer keys, tests, all of the audio for the course, the ExamView software, graphic organisers, pacing guides, placement test, scripts, video, word lists, and the extend worksheets. The unit tests come in PDF and editable Word format and cover vocabulary, grammar, reading and writing. There are also 3 end-of-term tests and 1 end-of-year test. Clicking on the Professional Development tab takes you to the PD videos. These cover a range of teaching methodology, including best practices for teaching teens, fostering student choice, summative assessment, and strategy instruction. Most videos are between 5 to 10 minutes long and are beneficial whether you're a new teacher finding your feet or an experienced teacher needing some refresher training. The final thing to mention is the classroom presentation tool. The classroom presentation tool has all the pages from the students and workbook, with all video and audio embedded. There are also interactive versions of the activities in the books, along with a number of tools to facilitate teaching, including a zoom, pen, and highlighter tools. For a full video walkthrough for the CPT, please visit the website. It can be found under the Professional Development tab under Training Videos. That brings us to the end of this Impact Introduction video. For further information, please visit the website at eltngl.com/impact. And for further training, please visit the National Geographic Learning blog at eltngl.com/infocus. Or if you wish to attend future webinars, please visit eltngl.com/webinars.